The night sky above the kingdom was filled with stars, brighter than ever before. The people of the royal city gathered outside the castle walls, pointing at the heavens, whispering among themselves, unsure of what they were seeing. Something strange had entered their world. It was not a star, nor a comet, nor anything that belonged to the skies they knew. From the hills beyond the city, a tall figure walked toward the castle gates. His name was Arun. He was not a knight of the kingdom, nor a servant of the crown. He came from the outer colonies of earth, far beyond the knowledge of the people who lived under the princess's rule. To them, he was a wanderer, a stranger who carried stories of worlds they could not imagine. Arun had brought with him something hidden under a heavy cloth. The object was mounted on a wheeled frame, and as he pulled it forward, its shape made the guards uneasy. They placed their hands on their spears and demanded that he explain himself. "The princess must see this," Arun said firmly. His voice carried a weight that silenced their doubts. There was no threat in his tone, only certainty. "It is not for war. It is for survival." The guards hesitated, but something in his eyes convinced them. They allowed him passage through the gates, though their suspicion remained. Inside the grand hall, Princess Alia waited. She was young yet carried herself with dignity, her dark hair falling behind a crown that was more symbolic than practical. For years her people had lived in fear of the shadows beyond the mountains. Whispers spoke of creatures not born of this world. Farmers told stories of fields destroyed in a single night. Shepherds swore that their flocks vanished without a trace. None of it had been proven, but fear needed no proof. Arun entered and bowed. His frame was lean but strong, his clothing simple yet marked with strange patterns of stars. Alia studied him with curiosity. Few dared to bring unknown objects before her throne. "What do you carry, traveler?" she asked. Arun pulled away the cloth. Underneath stood a machine unlike anything the court had seen. It was tall, metallic, with curved lines and glowing markings that pulsed like veins of light. It looked both beautiful and terrifying, as if it were alive. The hall fell silent. Gasps spread through the chamber. Some knights reached for their swords. The machine gave off a faint hum that made the floor vibrate. Alia's eyes widened. She stepped down from her throne, her voice rising in shock. "What is this? It cannot enter here. It will not fit in this hall." Arun raised his hands in calm. "Trust me, it will not hurt. This machine is no weapon. It is a shield. Without it, your people will not survive what is coming." His words unsettled the court. They did not understand. They whispered to each other, calling him mad. A few demanded his removal. Yet Alia silenced them with a gesture. "Explain," she commanded. Arun touched the surface of the machine. At his touch, the glowing lines grew brighter. A panel slid open, revealing a sphere of shimmering blue light inside. The air around it grew warmer, and a faint wind stirred the princess's gown. "This is called the Horizon Gate," Arun said. "It bends space, draws energy from the stars, and shields against what hunts from beyond. The enemy I speak of cannot be fought with steel or arrow. They tear through flesh and stone alike. This shield is your only hope." The hall filled with murmurs. Most could not believe his claim. But Alia saw the fear in his eyes, and it was not the fear of a liar. "Who are you to bring this to us?" she asked. "I am a son of earth," Arun answered. "My world has seen what comes. We fought. We lost. I escaped with what I could carry. If I leave this machine here, your city may survive longer than mine did." A silence followed. The weight of his words pressed heavily upon the court. The princess looked at the glowing core, then at the man who had carried it so far. She could feel truth in his voice, even if her mind struggled to accept it. "You ask us to trust you," she said slowly. "Yet we know nothing of you. You bring a strange machine into our hall, and you claim it will save us. Why should I not order my knights to destroy it now before it destroys us?" Arun met her gaze. His voice was calm but carried the fire of conviction. "Because once you see what waits beyond the mountains, you will beg for its power. I came here not to rule, not to deceive, but to warn. My machine may not fit in this hall, but it will fit over your city. And when the shadows arrive, you will thank it for being here." The court erupted with shouts, some for him, others against. Knights argued with scholars, priests muttered prayers under their breath. Yet Princess Alia raised her hand, and silence returned. She stepped closer to the machine, close enough to feel the warmth of its light. Fear battled with curiosity in her heart. She wanted to reject it, yet something within whispered that the stranger spoke truth. At last, she turned to her guards. "Take the machine to the courtyard," she ordered. "Let it stand where the people can see it. We will not decide its fate in secrecy. If this traveler speaks truth, his shield may be our salvation. If he lies, then we will see it with our own eyes." The guards hesitated but obeyed. Together they pushed the wheeled frame toward the great doors. The machine rolled forward with a steady hum, its glow casting long shadows across the marble floor. Arun followed, his eyes steady on the princess. He had taken the first step. Now the true test would begin. The courtyard of the royal castle had never seen such a sight. The machine now stood in the open, its surface glowing faintly under the night sky. The people gathered quickly, drawn by whispers that something strange had been brought into the city. Farmers, merchants, and children pressed against the stone walls, their eyes wide with fear and curiosity. Princess Alia stepped onto the balcony above them, her cloak flowing in the cool wind. She stood tall, but her heart was restless. Never had she allowed something so unknown inside the castle walls. She wondered if she had made a mistake. Arun stood beside the machine, his hands resting on the polished metal frame. His face was calm, though he could feel the heavy weight of 1,000 eyes upon him. He had been through this before. In his world, his people had doubted as well. They had ignored the warnings until it was too late. The captain of the guard, a man named Bran, stepped forward. His armor gleamed in the torchlight, and his voice carried authority. "Princess, this machine looks dangerous. It hums like a storm, and its light is not natural. Give me the order, and my men will tear it apart before it curses the city." The crowd shouted in agreement. Some wanted the machine destroyed at once. Others begged to know its purpose. Fear spread like wildfire among them. Alia raised her hand, and silence slowly returned. "No harm will be done to it tonight," she declared. "The traveler claims it is a shield, a protection against an enemy we do not yet know. We will hear him before we judge." The people murmured, unsure if they agreed, but none dared speak against the princess directly. Arun took a deep breath and faced them. His voice was steady and clear, reaching even the edges of the courtyard. "I know what you feel. I once felt it too. When this machine first came to my world, I feared it as you do now. But when the darkness came, it was the only thing that kept us alive. I lost my people, but I did not lose hope. That is why I am here." The people listened, though many frowned with doubt. A woman near the front shouted, "What darkness do you speak of? We see no enemy. We have our walls, our knights, our faith. We need no strange light to save us." Arun looked at her with calm sorrow. The enemy does not come like an army. It does not march with banners or sound of drums. It comes like wind and shadow. It consumes, it breaks, it steals life itself. You will not see it until it is upon you. By then, your swords will be useless. Only this shield will stand against it. The crowd fell into uneasy silence. Some believed. Others did not. Alia studied the machine again. Its surface reflected the torches around the courtyard, yet its glow was its own. She could not deny the pull it had on her. Something about it felt alive, as though it listened and waited. She turned to Arun. "If it is truly a shield, show us. Prove that it protects." Arun nodded. He placed his palm on the side of the machine, and with a soft sound, the glowing lines flared brighter. The sphere within began to spin, faster and faster, until it shone like a small sun. The ground shook, and a circle of shimmering light expanded outward, spreading across the courtyard. It formed a dome of energy, rising high into the sky like a crystal wall. Gasps filled the air. People stepped back in fear, yet the shield did not harm them. When stones were thrown at it, they bounced away without sound. When arrows were fired, they vanished into sparks before touching the dome. "This," Arun said, his voice firm, "is the Horizon Shield. It draws strength from the stars themselves. Nothing of shadow or flame can pass through it. With this, your city can stand when the enemy comes." The crowd erupted in noise. Some cheered in awe. Others shouted that it was sorcery. The priests declared it unholy. The knights whispered among themselves. Captain Bran stepped forward again, his hand on his sword. "Princess, even if this shield works, how can we trust him? What if this stranger commands the darkness himself? What if he has brought it here to trap us?" The words spread quickly, filling the people with fresh doubt. Alia felt the weight of decision pressing on her. She looked at Arun, who stood calmly inside the glow of the shield. His eyes met hers, steady and sincere. She saw no malice in them, only pain and determination. "I do not command the darkness," Arun said, his voice rising above the noise. "I escaped it. I carry the memory of my people who fell. If you destroy this machine, you destroy your only chance of surviving what is to come. I have nothing else to offer but truth." The courtyard grew quiet again. Alia raised her hand, silencing even Bran. She turned to the people. "I will not order the destruction of this machine. It will remain here. We will watch it, study it, and see if it brings harm. Until then, no one touches it without my command." The people grumbled, but none dared disobey. The guards surrounded the courtyard, keeping a careful eye on the machine and the stranger who guarded it. Later that night, when most had left, Alia walked alone to the courtyard. The shield still shimmered faintly around the machine, though softer now as if it were asleep. Arun sat nearby, his back against the stone wall, his face turned toward the stars. "You speak with certainty," Alia said softly. "But certainty is easy for liars." Arun opened his eyes and looked at her. "It is not certainty that I carry. It is memory. I have seen what happens when people turn away from the truth. I do not ask for your trust. I only ask that you prepare." Alia studied him for a long moment. She did not know if she could trust him. But something deep inside told her his words were not false. "Very well," she said at last. "You will stay here as a guest. You will answer my questions, and you will prove your words. If the enemy you speak of is real, then your machine may yet save us. If not, you will answer for the fear you have spread." Arun bowed his head. "That is all I ask." As the princess walked back to her chambers, she looked once more at the glowing machine. The shield hummed softly in the night air, as if it whispered of battles yet to come. The following morning, the sun rose over the royal city, painting the castle walls in shades of gold. Yet peace was thin. The people spoke of nothing but the machine in the courtyard. Some believed it was a gift from the stars. Others feared it was a curse. The city had never been so divided. Princess Alia sat in the council chamber, listening to the voices of her advisors. The priests demanded that the machine be destroyed, calling it unnatural. The scholars argued that it should be studied, for it might hold knowledge greater than anything their kingdom had ever known. The knights pressed for caution, fearing it might be a weapon hidden in disguise. Alia raised her hand for silence. Her eyes turned to Arun, who stood quietly near the door. "You told us of an enemy that comes like shadow," she said. "If we are to believe your words, tell us more. What are they? What do they want?" Arun stepped forward, his voice steady though his heart was heavy with memory. "They are not beasts, not men, not anything your swords can wound. They are hunters that feed on life itself. They drift through the skies, unseen until they choose to strike. They are called the Vair. They took my world piece by piece, until nothing remained but ruins and silence." The room fell silent. Even the priests who had shouted before now looked uneasy. Alia studied him. "And you are certain they will come here?" "Yes," Arun answered. "The Vair follow the flow of energy across the stars. They search for the warmth of life. Your world glows like a beacon to them. It is only a matter of time." Captain Bran narrowed his eyes. "If they are so near, then show us. Where are these creatures you speak of? Until we see them, your words are only fear dressed as truth." Arun hesitated. He knew words would not be enough. He would have to lead them beyond their safe walls. "Then come with me," he said. "Beyond the mountains, the signs have already begun. If you see them, you will no longer doubt." There was resistance. Many did not want to leave the safety of the city. But Princess Alia made her choice. She rose from her seat and declared, "I will go with him. If danger is truly near, then I must see it with my own eyes." Her advisors objected, but she silenced them. "I will not rule in blindness. If our enemy is real, I must know." So it was decided. A small party prepared at dawn. Alia rode at the front, wearing light armor beneath her cloak. Captain Bran rode beside her, ever watchful. A handful of knights followed, along with Arun, who guided them toward the jagged mountains that cut the horizon. The journey was long. The path grew narrow and rough, forcing them to dismount and lead their horses by hand. As they climbed higher, the air grew colder, and a strange silence hung over the land. No birds sang, no streams trickled, no wind stirred the trees. It was as though the mountains themselves held their breath. At last, they reached a ridge that overlooked a valley below. Arun raised his hand, signaling for them to stop. His eyes scanned the ground beneath them, and his voice lowered. "Look there." The knights leaned forward. At first, they saw nothing. Then they noticed the valley floor. The grass had turned black, as though burned by fire, Yet no smoke remained. Trees lay broken, their bark peeled away as if stripped by invisible hands. The soil itself seemed hollow, as though the life had been pulled from it. A murmur spread among the group. Bran frowned. This could be disease. Or fire. It proves nothing. Arun shook his head. It is their mark. The Vair drain life wherever they pass. This land is empty because they have fed here. As they studied the valley, the wind shifted. A faint sound reached their ears, like a low hum that grew and faded. Alia's heart quickened. She turned to Arun. What is that? He gripped the edge of his cloak tightly. His voice was grim. They are near. The hum grew louder. Shadows flickered across the ground though no clouds moved in the sky. The horses stamped nervously, their eyes wide with fear. Then, at the far end of the valley, shapes began to appear. They were dark, shifting forms, neither solid nor smoke, drifting just above the ground. Their edges blurred as if they were made of shadow itself. There were 3 of them, gliding silently, leaving trails of emptiness behind. The knights drew their swords, but Arun raised his hand sharply. Do not strike. Steel will not touch them. If they see us, the shield is our only chance. The party held their breath as the creatures moved slowly through the valley. The air grew heavy, pressing on their chests. Even the sunlight seemed dimmer where the creatures passed. Alia's eyes widened. Fear gripped her, but also a strange sense of resolve. She whispered, so it is true. Arun nodded. Yes. And this is only a hunting group. The swarm will be far greater. Captain Bran's hand tightened on his sword hilt, though he knew it would be useless. Then we must return. The princess cannot remain here. Reluctantly, Alia agreed. They pulled back from the ridge, moving quietly until the shadows no longer hummed in their ears. Only when the mountains once again lay silent did they breathe freely. The ride back to the city was tense. No one spoke much, each lost in their thoughts. The knights who had doubted now looked at Arun with new eyes, though Bran still carried suspicion in his gaze. When they reached the castle, Alia gathered her council once again. This time her voice carried no doubt. I have seen it with my own eyes. The land itself is wounded. Creatures unlike any we know walk in the valleys. This threat is real. We must prepare. The priests muttered in fear, the scholars scribbled notes in haste, and the knights shifted uneasily. Arun stood beside the princess, his expression grim but steady. He had spoken truth, and now they had seen it. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. That night, as the horizon shield glowed faintly in the courtyard, the people of the city slept uneasily. Some prayed, some wept, and some sharpened their blades, though blades would do little good. In her chamber, Alia stared out at the stars. She thought of the valley, of the shadows that drain the land of life. She thought of Arun's warning. And she whispered to herself, if they come, may the shield be enough. The days that followed their return from the mountains were filled with unease. The princess had seen the truth with her own eyes, yet truth did not bring peace. Instead, it split the city in two. Half of the people believed her and feared what was coming. They gathered near the castle walls, begging for the horizon shield to be raised at once. They offered prayers, food, and service to Arun, seeing him as a messenger who had come to save them. The other half rejected the warning. They claimed the shadows were tricks, that the valley had always been cursed, that Arun had brought danger with him. Rumors spread that he was a deceiver who wanted power. Some even whispered that the machine itself was calling the enemy closer. Princess Alia sat in her council chamber, her face weary. She listened to endless arguments from priests, scholars, and captains. Every voice fought for its own belief. One priest shouted, "The machine is blasphemy. It glows with unholy fire. If we destroy it, the shadows will vanish." A scholar countered, "Nonsense. This is knowledge beyond our age. To destroy it would be to throw away salvation itself." Captain Brand slammed his fist on the table. "The people are restless. If we do not act soon, they will rise against each other. Princess, you must decide. Will we trust this stranger, or cast him out?" Alia rubbed her temples. Her heart carried the weight of her choice. She had seen the valley. She had seen the creatures. But she also knew fear could twist truth. She looked at Arun, who stood silently at the edge of the chamber. "You have heard their doubts," she said. "What do you say?" Arun stepped forward. His voice was calm, but each word carried strength. "I did not come here to rule or to divide. I came to warn. Whether you believe me or not, the Vair will come. If you cast me out, I will not resist. But the shield must remain. It is your only defense." His words struck the chamber with quiet. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Alia rose from her seat, her voice clear. "The machine stays. Until we have proof it brings harm, it will stand as our hope. This is my command." Some bowed their heads in acceptance. Others left with anger in their eyes. The city remained divided. That night, the unrest grew louder. Groups gathered in the streets, some guarding the road to the castle, others shouting for the machine to be destroyed. Guards struggled to keep peace. Arun stood in the courtyard beside the horizon shield. He watched the glow of the core, faint and steady, like the heartbeat of a giant. He remembered his own city before it fell, how his people had argued the same way. Some believed. Some doubted. In the end, all had paid the same price. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Not again. Not here." A soft voice spoke behind him. "You carry their memory still, don't you?" He turned to see Princess Alia standing near, a cloak wrapped around her shoulders. She looked at the machine, her expression mixed with wonder and fear. "I carry it always," Arun said. "Every sound of the Vair, every shadow they left behind, lives inside me. I promised myself I would not let another world fall if I could stop it." Alia stepped closer. "My people are frightened. They look to me for answers, but I do not have them. I wonder if I am strong enough to face what is coming." Arun met her gaze. Strength is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to stand even when fear is heavy. You saw the valley. You know the truth. That is already more courage than most. Her lips pressed together, but his words gave her a spark of comfort. She nodded slowly. Before they could say more, a guard rushed into the courtyard, breathless. "Princess, trouble at the gates. A mob gathers. They demand the machine be removed." Alia straightened. "How many?" "Hundreds, perhaps more," the guard answered. "They carry torches. They will not leave until you speak to them." Alia exchanged a glance with Arun. He could see the fear in her eyes, but also determination. "Then I will speak," she said. Together they walked to the great gates of the castle. Beyond the iron bars, a crowd stretched into the streets. Torches burned like angry stars. Voices shouted, some with rage, others with desperation. When the princess appeared on the walls, the noise swelled. Destroy the machine. Cast out the stranger. Protect us with faith, not with sorcery. Alia raised her hand, calling for silence. Slowly the voices fell quiet. She stood tall, her voice clear. My people, I have heard your cries. I know your fear. But hear me now. I have seen what lies beyond the mountains. I have seen the land stripped of life, and creatures that no sword can kill. They are real. They are coming. If we destroy this shield, we will be helpless. If we keep it, we may yet survive. The crowd murmured, divided still. Some shouted agreement, others cursed in anger. Then, suddenly, a stone flew through the air. It struck the wall near Alia, shattering against the stone. Guards moved at once, shields raised, but she lifted her hand. No, she commanded. Do not strike them. They are our people, afraid and uncertain. Her calm steadiness quieted the crowd for a moment. Arun stepped forward then, his voice carrying across the torches. You do not know me, and you have no reason to trust me. But I ask you this. If the shadows come and there is no shield, what will you tell your children? That you destroyed the only chance you had because fear ruled you? I have seen what waits in the dark. You do not want that fate. The words rippled through the mob. Some lowered their torches. Others still glared in anger. At last, the crowd began to thin, some leaving in silence, others still shouting curses. The unrest did not end, but for now, the castle stood. When the gates closed again, Alia released a long breath. She turned to Arun. You speak with fire, stranger. You may have bought us time, but not peace. The city will not hold together forever. Arun nodded. Then we must be ready before it breaks. That night, the horizon shield glowed brighter, as if it felt the rising storm within the hearts of the people. The city was divided, and the shadow of the Vair drew ever closer. The days grew shorter, and the night seemed darker than before. The air itself felt heavier, as though the land was waiting for something dreadful. Inside the castle, the horizon shield hummed faintly in the courtyard, its glow casting soft light on the stones. Many came to see it each day. Some prayed before it, others cursed it, but no one ignored it. Princess Alia worked tirelessly. She ordered the guards to strengthen the walls, the smiths to forge new weapons, and the farmers to store extra grain. She could not calm the fears of her people completely, but she could prepare them. Arun spent his days beside the machine, repairing and adjusting its frame. The horizon shield was powerful, but it was not endless. It drew energy from the stars, and its core required alignment each night. If he failed, the shield would weaken. He worked with patience, though each adjustment reminded him of his lost world. One evening, as the last light of the sun faded, Alia came to the courtyard. She found Arun crouched near the glowing core, tightening a series of silver rods. His face was tired but focused. You never rest, she said softly. He looked up, offering a faint smile. The Vair never rest either. If I stop, even for a moment, we might not be ready. Alia studied him, then the machine. Its glow was strange, yet comforting. You speak as though they could arrive at any time. They can, Arun said. And when they do, it will be without warning. As if fate itself had heard his words, a sudden tremor shook the ground. The air grew cold, and the night sky darkened though the stars still shone. From beyond the walls came a sound like a deep hum, low and endless, vibrating through the bones of everyone in the city. The guards shouted in alarm. People ran into the streets, staring at the sky with terror in their eyes. The hum grew louder, joined by a chorus of whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Arun's face went pale. He rose quickly, his voice urgent. "They are here." Alia felt her chest tighten. She turned to the guards. "Sound the bells. Call the knights. Raise the shield." The bells of the castle rang out, echoing across the city. Fear spread faster than fire. Mothers pulled children into their homes, merchants abandoned their stalls, and priests cried prayers into the night. Arun pressed his hand against the machine. The glowing lines flared to life, brighter and brighter until the entire courtyard was bathed in light. The core spun rapidly, and with a thunderous pulse, the horizon shield expanded outward. A dome of shimmering energy rose high above the castle, spreading until it enclosed the entire city. The people gasped as the sky above them shimmered like glass. For a moment, hope stirred. But then the shadows came. From the edge of the night, shapes drifted forward. They were like black smoke, twisting and curling, yet moving with purpose. Dozens of them glided silently toward the city, their forms blotting out the stars as they passed. Wherever they moved, the air grew still and lifeless. The Vair had arrived. The first of the creatures struck the shield with a sound like tearing cloth. The dome shimmered, sparks rippling across its surface. The people screamed. The Vair hissed, their forms pressing against the barrier, seeking weakness. Inside the city, panic grew. Some fell to their knees in prayer, others rushed to the walls with weapons in hand, though no weapon could touch the enemy. The knights stood helpless, their swords useless against the shadows that pressed and clawed. Arun's hands moved swiftly across the machine, adjusting levers and resetting the rods. The horizon shield flickered under the strain. Sweat rolled down his face. "They are testing it," he muttered. "They want to break it?" Alia stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the dome above. Each strike made her heart pound harder. She turned to Arun. "Can it hold?" "It must," he said, though his voice was strained. The Vair struck again and again. The shield flared, bright as lightning, then dimmed. Cracks of light spread across its surface, though they healed quickly. Arun tightened his grip on the controls, feeding more power into the core. Suddenly, one of the shadows split apart, dividing into two smaller forms that darted toward the shield at different points. More followed, breaking and spreading like a swarm. The city was surrounded, dozens pressing at once. The shield groaned. The ground shook beneath the force of their assault. Arun shouted over the roar, "It cannot last unless I open the secondary core. But if I do, the machine will burn itself out within days." Alia's mind raced. "If you do not, the city will fall tonight." Arun met her eyes, then nodded grimly. He twisted a final lever. The machine roared with new life, the core blazing like a small sun. The shield flared outward, brighter than ever before. The Vair hissed and shrieked, recoiling from the sudden burst of energy. For a moment, the night sky cleared. The shadows pulled back, swirling angrily at the edge of the barrier. The people cheered, their fear turning into cries of hope. But Arun's face was not filled with joy. He knew what it meant. The machine had saved them tonight, but its strength was now burning faster than before. As the Vair drifted back into the darkness, the hum faded. Slowly, the shield steadied, its glow calming once more. The city was safe, at least for now. Princess Alia placed a hand on Arun's shoulder. "You saved us." Arun shook his head. "The shield saved you." but it will not hold forever. They will return, stronger and in greater numbers. And when they do, this machine may not be enough. Alia looked out over her city. Fires still burned in the streets where torches had been dropped in panic. Families clung to each other, whispering prayers of thanks and fear. She knew peace would not return so easily. She turned back to Arun. Then we must find a way to strengthen it. We cannot wait for the next attack. Arun nodded slowly. His eyes lifted to the stars, where the shadows had vanished. There may be a way. But it will require more than the city alone. If humanity is to survive, it must stand together. Alia followed his gaze, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. She had seen her people divided even without the enemy's presence. Could they unite now, with the shadow pressing at their gates? The first battle was over. But the war had only begun. The city did not sleep after the attack. Even though the horizon shield held, the people were restless. Torches burned through the night, and frightened whispers spread through the streets. Some spoke of the shadows returning the next day, others feared the shield would shatter if touched again. Princess Alia did her best to calm her people. She walked among them, speaking words of courage, but she could see the fear in their eyes. They had witnessed something that defied reason. No sword, no arrow, no fire could have stopped those creatures. Only the strange machine had stood between them and death. Inside the castle, Arun worked on the horizon shield again. He leaned over its glowing frame, sweat on his brow, hands trembling from exhaustion. The machine still pulsed with light, but he knew it was weaker. The secondary core was burning too quickly. Soon, its strength would fade. Alia entered quietly and watched him. She could see the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Finally, she spoke. You gave us safety last night, but you cannot carry this burden alone. We must find a way to stand together. One city cannot fight this war by itself. Arun straightened, his eyes tired but determined. You are right. The Vair will not stop with your city. They will come again, and they will spread across the land. If humanity stands divided, it will fall. You must summon the other rulers. Call them here. Alia hesitated. She knew the truth of his words, but she also knew the pride of kings and lords. Many cared only for their own lands. Some would never believe in shadows they had not seen. Others would see this as a chance to weaken her kingdom instead of saving it. Still, she could not ignore Arun's warning. With a heavy heart, she agreed. I will send messengers at once. Over the next week, riders were dispatched across the realm. They carried Alia's seal and her plea for unity. Some messengers returned with answers, others with silence. At last, a handful of rulers agreed to come. They would not bring armies, only words, but it was a start. The castle prepared for their arrival. Banners of foreign colors soon hung from the halls. The great chamber filled with men and women of power, each dressed in fine garments, each with guards at their side. Their voices were loud, their arguments louder still. Alia stood before them and spoke with steady voice. You have come because you know the truth. A shadow has fallen upon our world. The enemy is not a rival kingdom, not a war of men against men, but something greater. If we do not unite, none of us will survive. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some nodded, others frowned. Then a tall man with cold eyes stepped forward. He wore the crown of a nearby realm. I came because you asked, but I see no proof of this threat. You speak of shadows and machines, but I see only your word. Perhaps you invented this danger to gain power over us. Alia's voice grew firm. Would I invent the fear of my own people? Would I invite ruin upon my city? The man sneered. I see no ruin here. Your walls stand. Your people live. Perhaps this so-called horizon shield is simply a weapon you wish to use against us. Arun, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. His voice carried the weight of certainty. You are blind. The Vair are real. I have seen worlds fall to them. I have seen entire nations vanish without a trace. If you doubt me, wait until the next attack. But when it comes, it will not fall only on the city. It will fall on you as well. The chamber erupted in argument. Some believed Arun's words, others scoffed. One ruler spoke of preparing armies, another insisted the shadows were illusions. Pride and fear filled the hall, drowning the truth in noise. At last, a woman from a distant land raised her hand. She was older, her face marked with wisdom. I believe the princess, she said. I believe the stranger. My people will stand with yours. If the shadows come, we will fight. Alia bowed her head in gratitude. But only a few followed the woman's example. Many remained silent, unwilling to commit. The council ended in failure. Only half promised aid. The rest left with cold words or empty promises. Alia felt her heart sink as the rulers departed, their banners vanishing from her halls. That night, she stood alone on the balcony, staring at the stars. Arun joined her. They do not see, she whispered. They argue over crowns and land while the world burns around them. Arun looked at the horizon, his voice heavy. This is how the Vair win. Not by strength alone, but by feeding on division. They wait for pride to blind us, for fear to weaken us. And when we fall apart, they strike. Alia turned to him, determination burning in her eyes. Then we will not fall apart. Even if they refuse to stand with us, we will be ready. I will not let my people be slaves to fear. If unity cannot be found among the rulers, then it must be found among the people. Arun studied her face, and for the first time since arriving in her world, he allowed himself a faint smile. You are stronger than you know, princess. Days passed, and the castle prepared once more. Blacksmiths forged weapons, though none could touch the shadows. Farmers stored food, though no grain could stop the enemy. The horizon shield remained their only hope, and even it was fading. Then, one morning, the bells rang again. A rider returned from the north, his horse foaming with sweat. He staggered into the courtyard, his voice hoarse with fear. My lady, he cried, the shadows have already come. Villages are gone. Fields are empty. Whole towns swallowed by the night. A silence fell over the courtyard. The people stared in horror. Alia's heart turned cold. The Vair were spreading faster than she had feared. Arun's face hardened. It has begun. The time for words is over. Now the world must choose to fight, or it will be consumed. Alia lifted her chin, her voice steady despite the fear inside her. Then we will fight. Even if we stand alone. The city braced for what was coming. The alliance was broken, but the people's spirit had not yet shattered. The shadow was rising, and humanity's test had only just begun. The sky above the city had changed. Where once stars glimmered like scattered gems, now only a heavy darkness loomed. The Vair had spread across the land, swallowing villages, farms, and forests. Messengers returned with broken voices, describing empty towns where nothing remained but silence. Inside the castle walls, Princess Alia stood before her people. The courtyard was crowded with farmers, soldiers, merchants, and children. All eyes were fixed on her. Fear was clear in their faces, but so was determination. "My people," Alia began, her voice steady though her heart was heavy, "the shadows are here. The other rulers have failed to see the truth, and so we stand alone. But we are not weak. We are not helpless. As long as we breathe, as long as we fight, the darkness will not take us without a struggle." The crowd murmured in agreement, some lifting torches, others raising swords. The fear in their hearts had not vanished, but Alia had given them something stronger than fear. She had given them purpose. Arun watched from beside the horizon shield. He knew the people's courage would be tested soon. The machine glowed faintly, its core strained and fading. He had done all he could to strengthen it, but its energy was almost gone. That night, the attack came. The ground shook as the Vair descended, hundreds of them swirling in the night sky like a storm of black fire. Their whispers filled the air, chilling the bones of all who heard them. They pressed against the horizon shield, their forms twisting and clawing, searching for weakness. The dome of light flared brightly, holding them back for now. Sparks rippled across its surface with every strike, and the sound of tearing metal echoed in the air. The people gathered in the streets, staring upward in horror. Mothers held their children close, soldiers gripped their weapons tightly though they could not touch the enemy. Arun worked frantically, adjusting the machine. His hands moved faster than ever before, twisting levers, resetting rods, feeding every last spark of power into the core. Sweat rolled down his face, and his arms shook with effort. Alia stood beside him, her voice steady even as the ground trembled. "Can it hold?" Arun's voice was grim. "Not for long. The shield will fall before dawn." The words struck like a hammer, but Alia did not flinch. She turned to the nearest knights. "Gather every soldier, every archer, every able hand. We will not wait for the shield to shatter before we fight. When it falls, we meet them on the ground." The knights saluted and hurried off. Soon, the sound of steel filled the air as men and women armed themselves for battle. The horizon shield cracked with a sharp flash of light. The crowd gasped. Arun's voice rose above the chaos. "The core cannot hold. If I overload it, I can destroy the Vair around us. But the machine will burn out forever." Alia's heart froze. The horizon shield was their only weapon. Without it, the city would be defenseless in the future. But if she chose to keep it now, her people would die before morning. Her decision came quickly. She placed her hand on Arun's arm. "Do it. Save them. The future can wait if there is no one left to see it." Arun nodded. His hands moved to the final lever, the one he had sworn never to touch unless there was no other choice. The Vair shrieked as the shield's light grew brighter, burning like the sun. The dome pulsed outward, blasting through the shadow forms. Dozens of Vair dissolved into smoke, their whispers silenced. The people cheered as the light spread, but Arun staggered. The machine's glow faltered. The core cracked, releasing a wave of energy so strong that the earth itself shook. Then the shield shattered. The dome of light vanished, leaving only the open night sky. The city stood exposed, and though many Vair had been destroyed, more lingered at the edges of the darkness. They swirled together, forming a single massive shadow that towered over the walls. Its shape shifted like smoke, but its presence was heavy and dreadful. The people cried out in terror. Soldiers raised their swords, archers readied their arrows, though they knew these weapons were useless. Still, they stood their ground, refusing to flee. Arun fell to his knees beside the dead machine. His hands trembled, his face pale. "It is gone," he whispered. "The horizon shield is no more." Alia stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. "Then we fight without it?" She lifted a sword from a fallen guard, its blade gleaming in the torchlight. She turned to her people, raising the weapon high. "The shadows may be endless, but so is the will of humanity. Stand with me. Fight with me. Show them that we do not surrender." Her words lit a fire in the hearts of the people. The soldiers roared, the crowd shouted, and even the children lifted their voices. A wave of courage spread through the city. The massive shadow roared, its voice like thunder. It surged forward, but the people did not run. They charged to meet it, arrows flying, swords striking, torches burning. The weapons did not wound the shadow, but the courage behind them pushed it back. Arun rose, his eyes blazing with new determination. Though the horizon shield was gone, he still carried knowledge from his lost world. He grabbed a broken piece of the core, its shards still glowing faintly. With a desperate cry, he hurled it toward the heart of the massive shadow. The shard burst with light, piercing through the darkness. The shadow shrieked, twisting violently before dissolving into smoke. The smaller Vair scattered, fleeing into the night. Silence fell. The people stood in shock, staring at the empty sky. Then a cheer erupted, spreading through the city like wildfire. They had stood against the darkness and survived. Arun collapsed to the ground, exhausted. Alia rushed to his side, helping him stand. His face was pale, but his eyes were alive. "You did it," she said softly. Arun shook his head weakly. "We did it. Humanity did it. Not a machine, not one man, but the will of your people. That is what the Vair fear most." The city celebrated through the night, not with feasts or music, but with relief and hope. Families embraced, soldiers laid down their arms, and for the first time in many nights, the people slept without fear. At dawn, Alia stood on the castle walls, watching the rising sun. Arun stood beside her, leaning on a staff for support. The land beyond was scarred, but it still lived. Alia spoke quietly. "The war is not over. The Vair will return." Arun nodded. "Yes. But now the world knows they can be fought. Your people proved it. And when the time comes, others will join you. This was only the first stand, but it will not be the last." Alia turned to him, her voice filled with strength. "Then let it be known. Humanity does not bow to the shadow. We will fight, and we will endure." The sun rose higher, its light breaking through the last traces of night. For the first time since the darkness had come, hope filled the sky.